The Metamorphosis. What if he woke one morning as a dog? Chapter 1. The morning he slept well. That morning, Gregor felt, for the first time in a long while, that he had slept well. It took him a moment to realize how strange that was, for he had not known for many years now what a morning of having slept well even felt like. In his 10-some years at Elsinore trading, his mornings had always begun the same way, waking 5 minutes before the alarm, jolted up by anxiety. Today's meeting, the unread emails, the deadlines, his superior's mood. Countless small worries that would not sink down to the bottom of his sleep had dragged him, every morning, up to the surface before the appointed time. And yet that morning was different. His body was light, oddly clear. His arms and legs seemed to be settled in the bedding at angles unlike the usual. Still with his eyes closed, he thought, "Today I'm in good shape. For once, I'm in good shape." Then he opened his eyes. The first thing to enter his sight was his own front paw. A front paw. Yes, for some reason his brain recognized it as a front paw without hesitation. 4 toes covered in brown fur with black pads at their tips, 2 of them set neatly and politely on the pillow. He gazed at that paw for a while. It seems that when a person is truly astonished, he does not become astonished right away. Gregor did not scream, nor did he leap up. He merely gazed vacantly at that paw and then slowly raised the other paw into his field of view. The same, after all, brown fur, black pads. When he tried to move them, they moved properly, faithful to his will. He had become a dog. What kind of dog, he did not know, but without needing a mirror, he was somehow certain that he had become a medium-sized, floppy-eared brown dog. The sense of his body told him so. Around the base of his tail there was a new sensation that had not existed before. He could tell that it was swaying, just a little, with no relation to his own will. The first thing to surface in his head was this: will I make it to the meeting in time? He tried to look at the smartphone by his pillow. With pause, he could not operate it well. He poked at the screen with the tip of his nose. The screen brightened and displayed the time. 6:40 in the morning, 20 minutes earlier than usual. He'd make it. He'd make it easily. And he noticed himself feeling relieved at that. That whether he'd make the meeting came before the fact that his body had become a dog. He himself was faintly aware of the strangeness of that order, but the habit of stopping to consider that strangeness he had long since lost. The man who stops to consider falls behind in this company. The man who falls behind is blamed. So he had become a man who, whatever happened, first considered whether he'd make it in time. That was the reflex carved into his body over 10 years in his deepest place. He tried to climb down from the bed. His 4 legs moved far better than he had expected. As though he had lived on 4 legs from long before, his body descended naturally to the floor. His claws clicked against the flooring. Hearing that sound, he became, for the first time, just a little afraid. This was not a sound a human made. From beyond the door came his mother's voice. "Gregor, are you up? You're early today, breakfast is ready." It was the usual morning voice. The usual voice that knew nothing, that had not changed at all. Hearing it, Gregor no longer knew what he should do. He tried to answer, but what came out of his mouth was not words. A whimper. A thin, helpless voice came out, helpless to a degree that surprised even him. Beyond the door, his mother fell silent for an instant. Then she said, puzzled, "Gregor." Gregor tried to make a sound once more, this time more clearly. "Mother, something terrible has happened," he tried to say. But what came out, after all, was not words. It was a single, somewhat louder bark. The door opened. His mother stood there, in her apron, still holding cooking chopsticks in one hand. She looked into the room and then looked at the brown dog on the floor. Gregor braced himself. He could no longer go to the company, could not earn, was of no use. He had become that kind of existence. He steeled himself. He would become a burden to his family. But his mother did not scream. His mother dropped the chopsticks with a small clatter, and she covered her mouth with both hands. In her eyes there was not fear but something else. In a trembling voice she said this. "Oh, how adorable." Gregor could not immediately understand the meaning of those words. His mother slowly crouched down, and in a soft voice she had never directed at her son before, she spoke. This mother, who for long years had read her son's face, who had been careful not to spoil her son's mood, who while relying on her son's earnings had gone on holding back from him in some way. "Where did you come from? Are you hungry?" Gregor was confused. "Mother, it's me, it's Gregor." He tried to say it and barked again. His mother's face broke into a sudden smile. As though that bark were the most lovable thing in all the world, she gently reached out a hand and stroked behind Gregor's drooping ear. That hand was warm, and Gregor realized for the first time in his life that this hand of his mother's had never, not once in his 30-some years as a human, touched him this warmly, this unconditionally. The meeting no longer mattered. More than that, somewhere far below, he heard the sound of something quietly crumbling, something he had spent 10 years desperately protecting. The very meaning of working, earning, supporting his family. Being stroked, Gregor thought. How strange. I am far more welcome now than I was when I was human. Outside the window it was clear and bright. The meeting he should have been in time for was about to begin, on schedule, in a meeting room without him, while he was not there. Chapter 2: The Notice of Absence. The problem was how to contact the company. His mother was absorbed in stroking the dog that was Gregor, and had not yet noticed that her son was gone. To her, that morning's event was not the disappearance of her son, but the appearance of an adorable dog. When something joyful appears before a person, they do not, for a while, consider what was lost in its shadow. Gregor was anxious. After 8 in the morning, contact would come from the company. He had worked 10 years without a single late arrival or absence. He had never once taken a day off. Precisely for that reason, taking even a single day off without notice would be treated as an emergency. For a man of perfect attendance to vanish was, to the organization, an uncanny thing. Sure enough, at 8:15, his mother's smartphone rang. His mother answered with one hand, still stroking Gregor. "Yes, this is the Samsa residence. Yes, my son is." His mother's voice stopped there. It seemed she had, for the first time, realized it, that the other end of the line was her son's workplace, and that son was now nowhere in this house. She looked at the dog at her feet. Then, unable to say anything, she stood frozen. The voice on the other end of the line was matter of fact. "Mr. Samsa has not yet come in. There has been no contact. Do you know anything?" His mother answered, stammering, Well, my son is a bit, you see." At his mother's feet, Gregor desperately tried to convey something. "Tell the company this. He's not feeling well. He'll rest today. Tell them that." But all that came from his mouth was barking. To the party on the other end of the line, it must have sounded merely like a dog barking. The voice on the line changed, just slightly. "Mr. Samsa, are you a family member? May we come by your home once?" It was a decision in the form of a question. Elsinore Trading had that kind of culture. When an employee took an unauthorized day off, the superior came to the house to check on them. On the surface, it was concern. It was called a welfare check, but every employee knew its true meaning. It was a confirmation. Are you truly in a state where you cannot work? Are you not slacking off? The superior came to verify with his own eyes whether the company's asset, its labor force, had been halted for a legitimate reason. An hour later, the doorbell rang. It was Gregor's superior, the manager. At the entrance, the manager spoke to his mother, politely but in a tone that brooked no refusal. "We would like to confirm Mr. Samsa's condition. His numbers of late had been a little lacking as well. The company, too, must think about his future." His mother could neither say please come in nor please leave. and merely stood before the door. Behind her, Gregor was hiding in the shadows of the hallway. He was torn should he go out. If he went out, the manager would understand everything. No, he would understand nothing. What would reflect in his eyes was merely a brown dog. He would never think that Gregor had become a dog. He would conclude something like, Gregor had started keeping a dog and was skipping work to look after it. People understand only what falls within the range of their own understanding. The manager's voice came through the gap in the door. Mr. Samsa is no longer young either. These 10 years he has done well for us, but lately he hasn't the momentum he once had. To speak frankly, those above have begun to consider his treatment. This unauthorized absence today, too, will become a factor in that judgment. I am saying this for his sake. In the shadows, Gregor listened to it. Strangely, he was not hurt. The evaluation of himself, who had worked desperately for 10 years, wavering this easily over a single day's absence. Hearing it, his heart oddly did not stir. In his dog's body, he merely listened to it, like a distant noise. Had he been human, these words would have kept him from sleeping, would have given him a stomachache. But to him, as he was now, the words sounded like someone else's story, a story that had nothing to do with him. He could tell that within him as a dog, the existence called the company was rapidly growing small and far away. In the end, the manager did not come up into the house and left. On his way out, he left these parting words with his mother. Please tell Mr. Samsa. If he is unable to come in tomorrow, we will be proceeding with the appropriate procedures. The door closed. His mother stood before the door for a while. Then she turned around and found Gregor there in the shadows of the hallway. She slowly approached and crouched down. And she said, "From today you're our child." Gregor looked up at his mother. The stiffness she'd had while speaking with the manager just before had now vanished from her face. In its place was a calm smile, the like of which he had never seen. She had just now heard how her son was evaluated by his company, and yet her face was bright. Because what was before her eyes was now an existence with no need to be evaluated by any company. No need to earn, no need to rise, no need to be acknowledged by anyone. An existence that need only be there. Stroking that existence, his mother wore a more peaceful face than ever before. Gregor thought, perhaps mother had in truth known all along that I was suffering at the company, and she could not help that me. But the me that had become a dog, her she could help. She can stroke it, feed it, protect it. Mother could not become an ally to me as a human, but to me as a dog she can. It was a warm thought. And at the same time, it was a thought lonely enough to make one shudder. Chapter 3: A Comfortable Cave. Life as a dog was astonishingly comfortable. In the morning at a set time food appeared. Good food with nutrition in mind. When he was human, there had been no time for him to eat breakfast. Wolfing down a convenience store rice ball standing on the commuter train had been his breakfast. Compared to that, to be able to eat at a set time in a set place, a meal someone had prepared for him, was very nearly a luxury. During the day he slept. He could sleep as much as he liked. No one woke him. No one demanded anything of him. No emails came. The phone did not ring. There were no deadlines, no meetings, no reports. He sprawled on the sunlit floor and merely felt the time passing. For 10 years he had not known this much time spent doing nothing. His family doted on him. His father was a taciturn man. With the human Gregor he had not exchanged a proper word in years. Their conversation, such as it was, had been either about money or about appearances. That father before the dog that was Gregor became like a different person. When he came home from work, he first stroked Gregor's head. There, he said in a low voice. On his days off, he took him for walks. His father's hand was a hand Gregor had not been touched by since he was a child. His younger sister adored him. The human Gregor and his sister had gotten along badly. His sister, while understanding in her head that her brother was sacrificing himself for the family, had resented that oppressive weight. When her brother was home, the air was heavy. His tired face, his size, the things he carried, filled the whole house. His sister had wanted to flee from it. But the brother who had become a dog, his sister loved from the heart. She took photos of Gregor and posted them online. "Our boy is too cute." Many likes came. She held Gregor, nuzzled him cheek to cheek, buried her face in his soft fur. Gregor had not seen his sister laugh this freely, this carefree in years. Gregor was happy. At least his body was happy. When he was stroked, his tail wagged on its own. When he saw food, he drooled. When he went for a walk, his heart bounced. They were bodily reactions, unrelated to his will. His dog's body honestly expressed its joy. The him of his human days had forgotten even how to express joy. But when night came, the human part within him awoke. After the family had gone to sleep, he stayed up alone in the dark living room. He looked at the streetlight outside the window, and he thought, "Is this all right?" He had realized it, that the place he was now in was a very comfortable cage. His family loved him. That was real. But that love was a love poured out because he demanded nothing. A love poured out because he produced nothing, carried nothing, and merely was there, adorable. If he were to return to being human, to once again sigh with a tired face and begin working for the family, that love would again quietly recede. The human Gregor had been a dependable existence to his family, and at the same time a burden. His earnings had been welcome, but his existence itself had stifled the family. The family had needed his money, but whether they had needed him himself, that was unclear. The dog Gregor was the reverse. He earned not a single yen. He was of no use to the family at all. If anything, with his food and his medical costs, he was a pure cost, and yet the family needed him. Just by his being there, the family laughed. He produced nothing, and yet he was loved. Which is happier, Gregor wondered. A human who is useful but unloved. A dog who is useless but loved. He had come to know both, and having come to know it, he could no longer return to the days before he knew. One night, he noticed that he was trying to search for a way to return to being human. And the next instant, he noticed something else too. A self who, in truth, did not want to search for that way. If he returned, that morning would begin again. The alarm, the meetings, the emails, the deadlines, his superior's mood, and his family's that distant kindness. Those complex eyes that relied on him while thinking him a burden. "I don't want to go back," said his dog's body. "I have to go back," said his human heart. Between those two voices, Gregor sat every night, unable to sleep in the dark living room. Ironically, since becoming a dog, he had become, just as in his human days, unable to sleep at night. Only the reason had become the exact opposite. Chapter 4: A Proposal from the Company. A month passed. In the end, Gregor did not return to the company. Could not return would be more accurate. He remained a dog. How his mother had explained it to the company, he did not know. But one day, a sealed letter arrived at the house, from Elsinore Trading, the personnel department. His mother opened it and read it. It was a notice concerning long-term leave. Gregor had been put on leave. The reason? Ill health. The company seemed to think he was still recuperating somewhere. No one thought he had become a dog. People do not even imagine the impossible. So they had assembled on their own the most plausible story that in one sexcellent employee had burned out and fallen ill in his mind. In a sense, that was correct. Gregor had indeed burned out. It was only that the result was not leave but metamorphosis. A few days later, the manager came to the house again. This time he wore a far calmer face than before. He broached it to his mother like this: "Actually, we've decided to begin a new initiative at the company." The manager's story was this. In recent years, Elsinore Trading had been placing importance on the mental health of its employees, creating a workplace easy to work in, respect for diversity. They wanted to appeal such new values to the outside world. So, could they be permitted to use for the company's public relations? A beautiful story of an employee on leave who was healing his heart together with a dog. His mother was bewildered. What do you mean by that?" The manager explained, smiling. Mr. Samsa, for the sake of his recovery, had begun keeping a dog. Through contact with that dog, he was, little by little, recovering. We would like to put an article like that on the company's recruitment site. This is for Mr. Samsa's sake, too. It would make it easier for him to return one day, having left a good impression with the company. At his mother's feet, Gregor listened to it. He understood. The company had not fired the dog that was himself. Instead, it had decided to use him. Rather than cutting loose an employee who could no longer work, it would fashion him into a signboard, a kind company that cares about mental health. His absence had been turned, not into a cost, but into material for public relations. The manager continued, "To that end, might we have a few photos of the dog? Ideally, if there is a photo of Mr. Samsa together with that dog, that would be best." His mother was at a loss for an answer. A photo of her son and the dog together could not possibly exist, because her son was that dog. Gregor thought, "What irony! The company wants to advertise me as a kind employee who is recovering by living with a dog, but in truth, I am that dog. I am not being healed by living with a dog. By becoming a dog, I have at last been freed from the company." After the manager left, Gregor thought for a long while. The company would never let go of him. While he could work as a human, it used him as labor. When he could no longer work, this time it used him as material for public relations. It found, even in a person who had become useless, still further use value. That was the deep strength of the thing called an organization. An organization tries to the very last to convert a person into something. And Gregor thought, for the first time clearly, "I don't want to go back anymore. If I return to being human, I will become once more a part of that conversion device, consumed as labor, worn down, and when one day I become useless, converted like this into something else. That was the future awaiting him. I want to stay a dog." It was escape, he knew that, but what is wrong with escaping, he thought. To merely be worn down, unable even to escape, was far more terrifying. That night, for the first time, he slept well. It was the night he stopped searching for a way to return to being human. Chapter 5: The Circumstances of the Household. But even now that he had decided to go on living as a dog, the world, for its part, did not leave him be. The problem was money. 3 months since Gregor stopped earning, the household finances had grown visibly tight. That his salary had been supporting the family's life became, for the first time, clearly apparent only after he was gone. His father's pension and his sister's still modest salary alone could not maintain the life they'd had until now. His family loved him. But love did not pay the rent. Love did not pay the utility bills. The family's faces, while stroking the dog that was Gregor, were certainly happy. But that happiness was, before the reality of a bank book balance steadily decreasing, little by little, being worn away. One night, Gregor heard his parents talking in the living room. His father said in a low voice, "When is he coming back?" His mother answered, "The doctor says he still doesn't know either. Illnesses of the mind take time." His father was silent for a while. Then he said in a mutter, "If he were here, it wouldn't have come to this." Those words Gregor heard from a corner of the living room. His father had not said those words while looking at the dog that was him. His father had said them to the human Gregor in his head. His father loved the dog Gregor, but at the same time, he needed the human Gregor who was gone. That Gregor who worked, earned, supported the family. Gregor grasped it. His family's love for him had split in two. The unconditional love for him as a dog and the conditional need for him as a human, and those two could never coexist. As long as he remained a dog, the family would dote on him, but the family's life would tilt downward. If he returned to being human, the family's life would be rebuilt. But that stifling relationship, too, would return. What the family truly needed was the human Gregor. An adorable dog it was nice to have, but they could live without it. What they could not live without was the salary deposited every month. Love and need were different things, and the world was, for the most part, made to prioritize need. A few days later, his sister made a certain proposal. You know, his sister said to their parents, "What if we boarded this one somewhere?" The air in the living room froze over. His sister hastily added, "I don't mean abandon him. It's just we're hard up for money too, right? Food costs, vet bills, it all adds up. Until our brother comes back, wouldn't it be better for this one too to leave him with someone who can properly look after him?" They were words of kindness. His sister was, in earnest, saying it for Gregor's sake. She did not want to abandon him. She had merely, more honestly than anyone, admitted that they no longer had the room to support him. Hearing it, Gregor was, oddly, convinced. That's right, he thought. This is reality. Love is not eternal. At least, love that comes at a cost is not eternal. The family loves me. But to continue that love takes money. And the one who had been earning that money was none other than me. He realized only now that by becoming a dog, he had lost the one who supported him. The human Gregor had been able to support the dog Gregor, but the dog Gregor could not support himself. He had, with his own hands, eliminated his own place to belong. Ironically, the comfortable cage he had fled into was one he himself had built by working. And from the moment he stopped working, that cage had begun, little by little, to crumble. That night, Gregor again could not sleep. Chapter 6: No Going Back. Gregor made up his mind to return to being human. It was for the family. If he returned to being human and began working again, the family's life would be rebuilt. His sister would no longer have to speak of boarding him. His father would no longer have to mutter, "If only he were here." His mother would, again, return to that reserved mother who read her son's face. But even so, that was fine, if it would save the family. He desperately searched for a way to return to being human. But how he could return, he did not know. He had not become a dog by trying to. One morning, he had simply become a dog. There was no reason, no trigger. There could be no method for restoring something that had no reason. He tried various things. He desperately tried to recall how things were when he was human, wearing a suit, swaying in the packed train, bowing his head in the meeting room those days. His suffering as a human. If he could recall it, perhaps he could return to being human, he thought. Perhaps it was suffering itself that tethered him to being human. But the more he tried to recall it, the further those memories receded. In the 3 months since becoming a dog, the human part within him had faded astonishingly. The tension of meetings, the anxiety of emails, his superior's face, he could no longer recall them clearly. In their place, his body had grown entirely accustomed to the rhythm of a dog. In the morning, at a set time, he grew hungry. When someone came home, his tail wagged on its own. When stroked, he narrowed his eyes. He was trying to return, but his body no longer wished to return. And he realized something and shuddered. Perhaps the self of his human days had been the very same as this. Every morning, waking in anxiety, dreading meetings, reading his superior's mood, being worn down. Though that should have been unbearable, he had, for 10 years, been unable to quit that life. He had never even thought to quit it, because his body had grown entirely accustomed to that life. Suffering, yet unable to escape. It was exactly the same structure as his being now, unable to escape his dog's body. A person cannot easily leave a place he has grown accustomed to, even if it is a place that wears him down. What had tethered the human Gregor to the company was neither salary nor responsibility. It was mere habit. Habit, carved into the body over 10 years, that had put him on the same train every morning. And now, a different habit had him sprawled on the floor of this house. He was a man who could not, by his own will, leave either cage. One day, he made his last gamble. The instant the front door opened, he bolted outside. If he could not return to being human, then at least, so as not to become a burden to the family, he would vanish somewhere, he thought. That seemed like the one repayment he could make to the family. If he could not work and support them, then at least, by disappearing, he could reduce the cost. He ran. Down unknown roads, through an unknown town. His dog's body ran well. The wind stroked his ears. He was free. For the first time in his life, free, tethered to nothing. Not to the company, not to the family, not to salary, not to responsibility. But as he ran, he realized freedom meant being needed by no one. The company had needed him as labor. The family had needed him as a breadwinner. That need had tethered him like a chain. But that chain had at the same time been his place to belong. For him, having severed the chain, there was no longer anywhere to go, no place where he was needed. He stopped running. In a corner of an unknown town, he came to a halt, and he looked back at the road he had come. Let's go home, he thought. Even if there was a cage, even if that love was a precarious thing built upon cost, even if it was a fate of being one day boarded out, abandoned. If there was now a place for him to return to, it was only that house. He began to retrace the road he had come, choosing the cage over freedom. That was his choice, unchanged in even a single thing from his human days. Chapter 7, The Story After. Gregor made it home. When he was waiting before the entrance, before long his sister came home. The moment she found Gregor, she turned pale and came rushing over. Where did you go? You had me worried. She held Gregor. Her arms were warm and trembling with a real worry. In those arms, Gregor thought, I am loved after all, at least for now. In the end, the family did not board Gregor out. His sister's proposal never came up as a topic again. Those words of that night had been, at once, an honest sentiment squeezed out by hardship, and a mere mutter she had no real intention of carrying out. When a person is cornered, they say terrible things, but they do not carry out everything they have said. Within their hard-pressed finances, the family chose, even so, to go on supporting Gregor. The human Gregor, in the end, did not return. A year later, the company processed him as a natural resignation, because the period of his long-term leave had reached its limit. The procedure proceeded matter-of-factly. His seat had long since been taken by another person. The numbers, the trust, the relationships he had built up over 10 years were summarized into a few pages of handover documents, and then, unread by anyone, stowed in the depths of a server. There was no one at the company who genuinely mourned his absence. The manager was, in the end, unable to realize the public relations project using Gregor, because a photo of the man and the dog together could not, no matter what, be obtained. He gave up on that project and began searching for another employee in recovery, another piece of material for hoisting the signboard of a kind company. An organization does not halt even when one employee vanishes. It keeps moving, searching for the next something it can convert. Gregor lived as a dog in that house. In the morning, at a set time, he ate his food. During the day, he slept on the sunlit floor. In the evening, when the family came home, he went to the entrance to meet them. When stroked, he wagged his tail. It was a happy life. By anyone's eyes, the happy life of a kept dog. Only he knew that this happiness was built upon his having become one who produced nothing. That the reason the family loved him was that he no longer demanded anything of them. And that, if he were to return to being human and begin, once more, working for their sake, this unconditional love would, again, return to that conditional aloofness. He had chosen, rather than being needed as a useful human, worn down and one day cast aside, to live as a useless dog, loved, supported, and even so, within the precariousness of perhaps being boarded out one day. Which had been happier, no one knew, not even he himself knew. But there was one thing, only one, that was certain. the human Gregor had worked, for the family's sake, for 10 years. In all that time, not once had he been loved unconditionally by the family. He had been loved unconditionally only after he had ceased to be human. In the twilight living room, Gregor was being stroked, surrounded by his family. Outside the window, people in suits walked briskly by, people heading to evening meetings, people dreading tomorrow's deadlines, people reading their superiors' moods, people like the one he had once been. Gregor vacantly watched those people outside the window. And he narrowed his eyes, because being stroked felt good. Beyond that, he no longer thought. Not thinking was the one and only privilege of the him who had become a dog. And it was a privilege that, in his human days, he had in the end never been able to obtain.